Good afternoon, CCAFO, or excuse me, good evening, and welcome to Week 8. It is hard to believe that the season is coming to a close pretty soon. This past weekend being in the weather, the rain-driven mud at Stafford made me realize that the cold weather is approaching. Thank God, because I'm done with the Triple E changes. However, there still are some schools that are changing games. Kingswood Oxford just changed their game from Saturday to Friday. I believe everybody who was in that game saw the notification, and that's probably why you were pulled out. So I will be assigning that game out to guys who are available for Friday night. And we have some other changes that are happening. I believe Lewis Mills, I haven't been there, but if anybody who's on Facebook right now, I believe Lewis Mills now has lights, and they want to now switch all their games from day games to night games. And unfortunately, they continue to wait so late that we have 19, 20 games of the days that they want to switch, and just our availability is very difficult. So they are trying to switch a game in November. I'm really trying to question why you're switching. But anyway, I will deal with that when it comes. So for everybody who's on, I appreciate your time. As usual, it's the Monday before meeting. I want to go on and just kind of address a few things that have come up over the past week, the weekend. First thing is ejections. We're approaching week 8. So far, the first 7 weeks, we had seven weeks of ejections. And when I read the reports, sometimes the reports are very thorough, and I thank everybody who's submitted an ejection report when I go through it and make some edits before I send it off to the CIAC. Just a reminder, when you have an ejection, if you're ejecting any player at any level, whether it's freshman, JV, or varsity, an ejection report needs to be sent. The only time we don't send an ejection report is for a prep game. The prep schools aren't adjudicated by the CIAC, so they don't fall into that jurisdiction. So therefore, a ejection report is not necessary. So only a CIAC sanctioned game needs to have an ejection report. So if you're ejecting a player for a CIAC assigned game, whether it's freshman, JV, or varsity, we need to send an ejection report. This past week, there was an ejection in a game. I got a call from the head coach and the athletic director who wanted to protest the ejection. I looked at the film. I spoke to the coach. I spoke to the crew. And at no time did I see any type of punch that was thrown or even landed that would warrant an ejection. So when we're ejecting a player, we need to make sure that a couple of things, that we come together as a crew and discuss what we saw. You need to discuss the foul at first, and then discuss if that player should be ejected from the contest. Let's not immediately rush to judgment on an ejection, because just because you throw a punch doesn't mean it's an ejection. Just because you take a swing doesn't mean that it's ejection. Two players go to the ground and they're wrestling and arm fighting and punching and just trying to get away from each other. It's not necessarily an ejection. You can call personal fouls, but it's not necessarily an ejection. It's football. It's a very violent and aggressive game, and we need to treat it as such. But we also need to make sure that we are keeping control of the game. This past weekend, I did 2 games. This past weekend, I did a game Saturday afternoon, and we actually had 3 ejections. The ejections that we had were a couple of players that took swings at each other. You could definitely see it. It wasn't definitely what we call a fight. But one guy took a swing, the other guy took exception, pushed him back. You could have deemed it a punch. But what we decided that we were going to do is a soft ejection. And a soft ejection, basically it went just like this. We brought both coaches aside. We pulled them and we just basically said, Coach, your players basically have severe stomach cramps. It would be highly recommended that they just sit on the bench and just rest the rest of this contest. I don't think that playing with the stomach cramps is probably in their best interest, and they should just kind of sit out. And actually, I think we said migraine. So your player came down with a severe migraine. Running around in that physical contact is not going to be best suited for them. So we just kept looking at the coach. We didn't say anything about ejecting the player. We're just like, I think if you do the right thing, they'll feel better on Monday. After that, whatever you decide to do going forward is really up to you and your coaching staff. So what we did was we removed the player from that contest, but we did not eject them. Remember, if you eject the player, not only are they done for that game, they also have to sit out the next game. And I believe they're not able to participate in any practices until they're eligible to play. So an ejection goes a long way. So we make sure that we're going to eject the player, that you get together and really discuss the ejection. And also, we should have a flag if we're going to be ejecting a player. We shouldn't have a personal foul flag and then no other flags for the act of ejecting a player. So just some thoughts to add there on ejecting a player. You can also do the soft ejection approach where you're going to remove them from the game and not risk anything further. It'll be really the school and the coaching staff expectation of how they want to handle that player moving forward. So remember, you can take the soft ejection approach if you have to. And I think that's definitely a way to go as we move towards the final 3 weeks of the season. Keep in mind that rivalry week is coming up. Rivalry week is not Thanksgiving week. What it is the weeks prior. It's going to be weeks 9 and 10. What's going to happen in these weeks is that standings, now that we have the bye week, teams are coming off that bye week. They're looking at the standings. They're looking at where they sit as far as seeding in the playoffs. They know that they need to either win out or they need to beat the current opponent that's ahead of them in order to really kind of stay in the playoff chase. So the games are going to get more heated. Guys that are seniors, they're going to start to get desperate because they don't want this to be their last game or their last loss, or they don't want to lose on this field, or it's senior day. So not only are players going to be high in emotions as well as coaches, but officials are going to be high with emotions as well. So you need to keep those emotions intact. You need to make sure that we see the play, we slow down, and we make the proper calls. Which leads me into my next topic is communication. Almost from week one, I've been talking about communicate. Again, that starts with the referee sending out that email, just kind of letting them know when pregame is going to start and where you're going to be meeting. And now that we're getting the cold weather, are you going long sleeves? Are we going short sleeves? So we should start our communication process at that point. For anyone who's attending the pregame, you need to bring something to the table. Don't just sit there and get dressed or be a yes man. Contribute to the conversation. Add something to either a team that you had before, some of their tendencies that they have, or anything going that forward. If you're other referees, share information, not just with the referees, but share information with either your mentor, your mentees, things that you've seen from a team, things that you had. So that way, when we come to the pregame, we can have a great discussion. I continue to reiterate to the referees and umpires, when you have that coaches meeting, to have that meeting prior to the pregame. Get all the information, bring that back, include that information in your pregame as you're getting dressed. The old way of doing things, of getting dressed, having the pregame, going to the field, is voodoo. We have too many newer officials, or too many officials who are out of position or shouldn't be on the varsity field at this time. I'm not taking away anybody's game knowledge or anything of that nature, but because of the amount of games that we have on Friday night, because of the Triple E stuff that was going on, a lot of games are either played early or it's including a crew with members who just don't have the experience that a veteran crew would have. And in order to enable them to do the proper job, we need to give them as much information as possible. By meeting with the coaches prior to the pregame, we can come back with that information and then talk situational football. I think that's a very valuable step in the communication as well as the pregame process, and it'll definitely make the game go a lot smoother throughout the game. Other parts of communication that I'm talking about, I just talked about when we're talking about ejecting a player. We want to make sure that we get together as a crew and talk about the ejection. But also when we're coming out of timeouts, we're coming out of an injury, any type of stoppage for a penalty, whether we're going to be accepting the penalty or declining the penalty, the 25 play clock, the play clock should now be 25 seconds. We should be reiterating that. If you're the back judge and you're telling the referee that we're going on the snap here, we all should be yelling 25, 25, 25. We shouldn't lose count of a downs or play time. So we need to make sure that when we're in live ball action, that the play clock is 40 on live downs. However, on those rare occasions, the play clock does go to 25 seconds. So we want to make sure that we're not giving teams extra time. We had a situation happen in a game last Friday where we messed up on the play clock. It should have been a delay of game, and therefore we missed it. The team had extra time and eventually scored a touchdown in what turned out to be a one-possession final. As far as training is concerned, I just want to talk about some of the things that we need to continue to work on and to improve. We have our fourth man program. We have the observers program that we're going to continue to develop and kick off hopefully this season. But that training program that we have is not just for younger officials. It's also for those middle line officials, the guys that are in that 6th, 7th, and 8th year. And sometimes even veterans can benefit from that. Again, this Saturday I did a game. It was at the score was 49-28. The visiting team had a 3-touchdown lead. It was 3rd down and 15 from the 20-yard line. So the offense could still get a first down. On the play, they were scrambling around, and the quarterback just chucked it into the stands. Clearly intentional grounding. I didn't throw a flag on intentional grounding because there were only 21 seconds left in the game. The home team was trailing by 3 touchdowns. So I figured, why rub salt in their wound? Just let this last play go off. We can get out of here and we can move on. Well, lo and behold, that very next play, guess what happened? They just threw up a Hail Mary. Offense comes down with it. We got a touchdown. They convert the 2-point conversion, and then guess what happens next? You got it. The onside kick is coming. The visiting team recovered the onside kick, took a knee. The game was over. However, the head coach for the visiting team was still screaming, why wasn't there a flag for intentional grounding? The line judge tried to talk me into that, but I said the exact same thing. I am not going to throw a flag at this point in the game. I just want this game to be over. So as players and coaches continue to play for the full 48 minutes, we need to make sure that we officiate for the full 48 minutes. We shouldn't be taking snaps off. We should make sure that we are using our best judgment. That Saturday, I didn't use my best judgment, and in the email that I sent to the coach, I did apologize that was on me and that I let our crew down. So guys, I apologize for not throwing the flag for intentional grounding. I need to do better on closing out the football games because if I just threw the flag for intentional grounding, it would have been a 5-yard penalty, loss of down. The offense still would have had it 4th down. Who knows if they would have scored on that Hail Mary because they would have been 5-7 yards further back than they were. But that's a flag that should have been thrown, and I'll fall on the sword for that one and for the crew. And again, I thank my line judge for trying to talk me into throwing that call. You shouldn't feel bad for my mistake. And I'm also getting a lot of calls from athletic directors about our clock operators. They're not keeping down and distance. So it's been a reoccurring message since week 1. The last 2 weeks has been very bad because it's been homecoming and a lot of additional fans have been at these games, and the same message holds true. We have a big crowd and we don't have down and distance. We have this scoreboard. It's not being utilized. All we have is the score and the time. People don't know what down it is. It's just a reoccurring repeat of itself. So what I'm asking, if you're doing a clock game, could you please take a picture of the clock operating box? Take a picture, text it to me. What we want to try to do is to try to find out what the schools are utilizing for a clock. That way we can gain a library to say that, East Catholic is using this version. Bloomfield is using that version. East Hartford has this box. Then we can get the proper training on down and distance. Now, I'm not saying that it should be mandatory. And speaking to a couple of operators, they were saying that they used to keep down and distance. It wasn't a problem. But because of the silent whine, it's posing a challenge for keeping down and distance. So it's something that we need to kind of work through together with the school, with the ECOs, and our training program to kind of make sure that anyone who's doing a clock game is capable of doing the down and distance. I'm not saying it's a requirement at this point in time, but some of the schools are saying, hey, we're paying money for this. We would like to see this. But because of the rule change, I am defending the reason why we aren't using down and distance for certain games. So as you guys go out to your clock games this weekend, both Friday and Saturday, please take a text. Use your cell phone. Just snap a picture of the box that you're using. If you can go ahead and text that to me, we can start to build that library. And then hopefully guys, maybe Lou, Greg Pack, Jim Moderano, whoever's available on these certain models who have some knowledge of them, can go ahead and give some training. I am going to suggest to some of the schools, if you want to supply a person to do down and distance, by all means go ahead. But again, at this point in time, it is still not mandatory for the ECOs to do down and distance. But in all means, if you can do that, please do so. But if not down and distance, at least try to put up the down, first down, second down, etc. And the last thing that I just want to talk about, guys, is just the some of the complaints that have still been coming in. As the assignment committee has wrapped up their assignments on helping with the playoff crews, I want to thank them for their efforts on selecting their playoff officials and all the due diligence that they did, throughout the last couple of weeks. I know they had a very great meeting last week. I believe it was at Harry's Pizza, where they had a great discussion about football. One of the things that I can say prior to us announcing the playoff crews is that the process is still flawed. I don't think that there's a process that's ever going to be 100% perfect, but I think we need to kind of work together to kind of establish guidelines as to what makes an official a playoff eligible official. Right now, if you look at the policy and procedures or the bylaws, there's a lot of things that are in there that I hear, I need 5 games at this position to be eligible. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So I think as over the course of time, we've gotten accustomed to some of the rumors or the things that we thought were true. Like a person can't go back-to-back years, which is not true. It's not in the guidelines. A person can go back-to-back years. The thing that we've said as a board is, because we are one of the largest boards in the state, we have enough officials to supply or to support an official not having to go back-to-back years. But sometimes that's not always the case. So I think this offseason, a couple of things that we really need to look at is how are we rating? Can we encompass the observer program into our ratings? Can we look at some of the things that way? And the other thing, too, is not only how are we rating, but establish some better guidelines as far as the playoff crews are concerned, as far as eligibility guidelines. I think the assignment committee did a great job. In the past, I've been on the assignment committee a few times, and it's always hard selecting certain guys, certain individuals. Some guys you see, some guys you don't see. You want to try to be fair and not select your buddy or the guy that you hang out with the majority of the time, because you don't want to look like you're favoring one guy over another. So I know what it's like. But let me tell you, when you're actually on the other side of that coin, when you are trying to finalize and tabulate the list, it is a lot harder. So it's definitely a responsibility that I'm taking strongly under advisement. And, we'll be announcing those crews shortly. And, it's not, I don't think it's a decision that one person should be solely responsible for making. As you guys know me by now, or some of you know me, and I said this last year, this is not my board. It is our board. I'm just an official just like you. I'm just probably the spokesperson or the face of the board who's speaking to the athletic directors and obviously the body of the board. So I don't want to basically make all the decisions. There's been some rumors that this has been a dictatorship, and it is far from that. I consort with a lot of individuals. Before I even took this job, when the season started, I held my commissioner's forum. I spoke to guys that were first year, to guys that were in their 10th year and above, to just get some thoughts and ideas of where our board should be headed and how it should be run. And one of the things that you guys said was you want more information. Well, the more information that we're giving you, I still see the same names that are logging into the Facebook Live. I've told a lot of you that I go on Facebook Live. I've said it at the meetings. The Monday before the regular meeting. I go on at 8 o'clock to 8:20. Speaking of that, what time is it? I'm a little over, so I apologize. But again, there's got to be more you guys doing your part on getting information, whether it's off the website from TJ or Joe, our interpreters from the BOC. Whether you just want to talk to President Turnquist to find out where there's a fourth man game. Maybe you just want to jump in for free and work a 5-man game to get better on mechanics. Whatever it's going to be, guys, you need to kind of step up and do your part to help our board continue to improve and get better. So it's not just an overnight process. It's not a one-year process. This is just the beginning of a lot of changes. For some, they're always talking about their schedule and why I'm not getting games and why this young guy is getting games. It just doesn't work that way, guys. I am not purposely trying to screw anybody. A good example of that is this week, week 8. Coming out of the bye week, which was last week, we have, I believe there's 17 games Friday night, and I believe there is 4 games on Saturday. So if you don't have a game Friday night, it's probably because you're not available or you're on the field. Also keep in mind, UConn has a game on Friday night that's taken away 7 additional clock operators that we would normally have on the field for high school games. So has nothing to do with who you are or if I get along or anything like that. Guys, I could care less what our relationships are personally. I just want to fill the games with the best qualified officials. And if I switch you from an assignment, there's a reason. I'm tired of being questioned on why you're being pulled from a game versus things of that nature. If you start off the weekend with a football game, you're going to end the weekend with a football game. If you're available on Saturday, you're going to get a game and the game changes. Well, I will do my best to keep you in that game so you don't lose out. But it's going to be a rare occurrence that you're going to actually get a doubleheader. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a lot of games go from 7 to 3. Not a lot of availability that was out there. I reached out to some guys. Guys were available at 3. What I would have liked to do, and I'll just use Dana as an example, Dana couldn't get to a 3 o'clock game, but he was still available to do a 7 o'clock game. Dave Davies was willing to give up his 7 o'clock game to work the 3 o'clock game, and I could have put Dana in that slot. Like an idiot, I put Dana with me down at Xavier. It was the biggest mistake that I made because I can't stand working with him, but I did it anyway. But it's things like that make our board a lot stronger. So I commend Dave for willing to switch and give up his game to go work another slot. He wasn't looking to work a 3 o'clock game and a 7 o'clock game. He was just looking to be on the field to help us out. So wherever we could help out together as a board, let's do it. There have been a couple of times this year. I was involved in one of them. I convinced Mike Trujillo. We did an afternoon game. Neither one of us had anything to do on Friday night. So like idiots, we went to Simsbury and jumped in as a 6th and 7th man. Thank God we did because it turned out to be a bigger game than expected. And the crew at that night definitely benefited from having the 2 additional officials. So as we approach these days where there is limited action on Saturday and you have nothing to do and you want to go ahead and let the crew go a 7-man game, if you're available, let me know. I'll contact the referee. We'll get you guys added as a 6th and 7th man, and we'll kind of go from there. So any better improvements that we can do for the board, let's do it. If you have some ideas going forward, shoot them to me in an email, and we'll talk in the off season. But like I said, let's continue to improve. Let's continue to stay safe. I don't want to steal any thunder from the BOC from tomorrow or from President Turnquist or the interpreters, but I think you guys are doing a great job. And before I close, I just want to talk about a couple of things. This past weekend, I said that Scott Wood's father passed away, so our board goes out to you. Scott, our prayers are with you while you're dealing with your sad time. And Joe Vance also went down Friday night, a scary situation where he had to be taken to St. Francis Hospital at halftime during the game. The crew ended up finishing with a 4-man game. So I commend the crew for making the adjustments and kind of going ahead and finishing up that second half and what was obviously a hostile sideline on the chain side with Bristol Central. Joe is doing fine. He's home. I'm not sure if he's going to be at the meeting tomorrow. If you want to send him an email or shoot him a text, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear from you. But so for all those who send the well wishes to Joe and through me, He is doing fine. Thank you for your concern. And who is the game? I don't even know what the football game is tonight. So I think I'm gonna go have a beverage. So I'm gonna go out, maybe watch the first half of the game. I think I'm gonna head to First and Last on Sisson Avenue. Anybody wants to buy me a beer, that's probably where I'll be for at least a quarter. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a great night. Bye.